All right, let's get into it. We're going to talk about one of the most basic ideas there is, cause and effect. It feels like the bedrock of reality, right? But what if it isn't? What if cause is really just a story we're all telling ourselves, all the time?
I mean, think about it. You hear a rattle, and your brain doesn't even pause. It just serves up an answer, wind. That connection is so fast, so automatic, we don't even notice it's happening. It's a survival instinct, really. The ancestor who heard a rustle in the bushes and thought predator was the one who got to pass on their genes. Our brain is basically a prediction machine, and cause and effect is the software it uses to make sense of, well, everything.
So let's start with what feels obvious, our default setting. This is the common sense view of the world. The idea that things happen out there in a neat chain of events, like dominoes falling one after another. It's all real, it's objective, and we're just watching it happen.
Now, there's a philosophical term for this gut feeling. It's called causal realism, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the belief that cause and effect are woven into the very fabric of the universe, totally separate from us. Our job isn't to invent these laws of nature, just to discover them.
And this idea goes way, way back. We're talking thousands of years ago, to Aristotle. He said that to really truly understand something, let's say a bronze statue, you had to know its four causes. First, what's it made of? Bronze. That's the material cause. What's the plan or design? That's the formal cause. Who or what actually made it? The sculptor. That's the efficient cause, which is what we usually mean when we say the cause. And finally, what's it for? To honor a hero, maybe? That's the final cause. For Aristotle, these weren't just ideas, they were real properties of the statue itself.
For centuries, pretty much everyone was on board with this common-sense view. And then, the 18th century Scottish philosopher David Hume shows up. And he asks this one simple question that just completely shatters everything.
Okay, so to get what Hume is about to do, you have to understand his fundamental tool. He said everything we perceive is one of two things. You have impressions. That's the raw, vivid, real-time data from your senses. Seeing the color red, feeling a sharp pain. Then you have ideas, which are just the faint copies, the memories of those impressions. Remembering what red looks like or imagining that pain. And here's Hume's killer rule. Every single meaningful idea has to be traceable back to a sensory impression. If it can't, it's just an empty word.
So Hume takes this tool and applies it to a classic cause and effect event, like one billiard ball smacking into another. What do we actually perceive? What are the raw impressions? Well, first, we see contiguity, the ball's touch, in space and time, okay? Second, we see priority. The first ball moves before the second ball does. Got it. But what about the most important part?
Where's the impression of the cause? We see one thing happen, and then we see another thing happen, but we never ever actually see the force, the power, the glue that connects them. Hume called this the necessary connection. You don't see the must, you just see a sequence of events. So where does that feeling of necessity come from? And here's Hume's mind-blowing answer. If that necessary connection isn't out there in the world, it must be inside of us. He said that after we see two events happen together over and over and over again, what he called constant conjunction, our mind develops a habit. It develops a powerful feeling of expectation. And then we project that internal feeling out onto the world and call it causation. The necessity isn't in the objects, it's a story our mind tells itself based on habit.
You can imagine, this sent philosophy into a total tailspin. I mean, if cause and effect is just a psychological habit, is all of science built on a feeling? The whole thing seemed to be built on sand. It took another philosophical heavyweight, Immanuel Kant, to figure a way out. He famously said that Hume woke him from his dogmatic slumber, and it inspired him to launch a revolution of his own.
So, for pretty much all of history, the basic assumption was that the mind works like a passive mirror. Knowledge happens when our thoughts accurately reflect what's going on out there in the world. The mind's job was to conform to objects. Kant just flipped that whole thing on its head. He said, hold on, what if we've had it backwards this whole time? What if the mind isn't a passive mirror, but an active cookie cutter? It takes the raw, messy dough of our senses and actively stamps its own structure onto it. For us to have any kind of coherent experience, the world has to conform to the basic rules of our mind.
And guess what one of those fundamental pre-installed apps is? Causality. Kant basically agreed with Hume, we don't get the idea of cause and effect from experience. But he disagreed on the source. It's not just a habit we learn. For Kant, it's a non-negotiable rule the mind must use to organize sensory information into an objective reality. It's what lets us distinguish between us just looking around and a ship actually moving down a river.
Okay, so let's quickly recap this whole philosophical throwdown. You have the realist view, like Aristotle's, that says causality is a real force out there in the world. Then you have Hume's empiricist view saying, nope, it's just a psychological habit we develop. And finally, you have Kant's transcendental view, which is this amazing middle ground. It's a fundamental, pre-wired rule of our own minds that makes any objective experience possible to begin with.
Now here's where it gets really cool. This isn't just a debate that happened hundreds of years ago. Modern science is actually weighing in, and it turns out Hume and Kant were seriously onto something.
Today, cognitive scientists talk about the brain as being a storytelling machine. It has this relentless, automatic drive to find patterns and create meaning. It does this by constantly weaving events into cause and effect stories. It fills in the blanks, it connects the dots, and it creates a narrative that makes a chaotic world feel predictable and safe. We are quite literally architects of meaning.
So what does this all mean for us right now? Well, if we know that our brains are hardwired to create causal stories, sometimes even when they aren't there, we can become much sharper critical thinkers. This awareness is like a toolkit for spotting when our own instincts are leading us down the wrong path. Take this classic example. If you look at the data, you'll find a really strong correlation between the amount of ice cream sold and the number of shark attacks. As one goes up, the other goes up. So, does eating ice cream make you more attractive to sharks? Our storytelling brain immediately wants to invent a reason, but this is a classic trap. The real culprit, of course, is a hidden third factor. It's not that one causes the other. It's that hot summer weather causes both. When it's hot, more people buy ice cream, and more people go swimming in the ocean, which unfortunately increases the chances of a shark encounter. This is the absolute classic example of correlation not equaling causation.
And our brains are prone to all kinds of these causal fallacies. There's the post hoc fallacy. Just because something came after, it must have been caused by the first thing. Think, the rooster crows, then the sun rises, so the crowing causes the sunrise. There's the single cause fallacy, where we blame a big, complex event on one tiny thing, and you can even get it completely backwards with reverse causation. Keeping an eye out for these is a superpower for cutting through the noise you see in ads, news, and politics every single day.
So we end up back where we started, but the question is much deeper now. We've gone from Aristotle's common sense world to Hume's psychological habit to Kant's idea of the mind's own organizing rules. What seems like a simple act of observation, seeing one thing cause another, is actually a profound act of interpretation. It forces us to ask a really fundamental question. Are we just passively reading the book of reality, or are we, in a very real way, writing it?